Welcome to the Church Ready podcast. The church's mission doesn't change because of AI, but the infrastructure that sustains that mission has to. Let's join your hosts, Bradley Willis and Elizabeth Carter, for honest conversations about AI and the church.
So picture this. You have a sermon to finish for Sunday. Plus, you just found out you have a funeral homily you have to deliver on, like 48 hours notice.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
It is. And on top of that, there's this highly sensitive, super nuanced email you have to send to a grieving family. Oh, and sitting right there on the corner of your desk are the rough notes for the elder board minutes that absolutely nobody wants to write.
Nobody ever wants to write those.
Never. So you're sitting there, you're staring at a blank screen, your emotional tank is just running on fumes.
Completely empty.
Exactly. You just need some relief. So what do? You open up a chatbot, you type in a few prompts, and in, 10 seconds, the screen just fills with words.
And that relief, it just washes over you.
It really does. But what you might not realize in that exact moment of exhaustion is that you haven't just outsourced a task. You might have actually just taken the very first step toward outsourcing your pastoral voice. I'm Bradley Willis.
And I'm Elizabeth Carter. We are the host of the Church Ready podcast, where we have strategic conversations about AI and the church.
And if you pause and really look at the rhythm of your week, it becomes pretty obvious quickly, right?
Yeah.
Ministry never, ever runs out of demand for words.
No, it is a constant machine.
Yeah, you are basically living on this treadmill of output. And let's be fair, that treadmill was burning hot long before AI ever arrived on the scene.
Oh, absolutely. The burnout was already there.
Right. So in this episode, we're going to look at what actually happens when a massive technological shift meets that burning treadmill. AI has stepped in as a massive relief for this heavy workload. And let's be entirely honest, for the most part, it truly is a relief.
It is. It really is.
But today, we're shining a light on a hidden danger. Like, what happens when nobody decides in advance where that relief is actually supposed to stop?
Yeah, and I think the challenge here is that AI, it doesn't enter a pastor's workflow looking like a threat to a calling.
Right.
No, it doesn't wear a scary mask. It never announces itself as this, replacement for pastoral authenticity. It shows up disguised as the ultimate administrative assistant.
That's a good way to put it.
And the instinct to use AI for those routine tasks, it's just completely natural. Like when you need to draft a 90-second outline for a volunteer sign-up email.
Right, which takes forever otherwise.
Yeah, using a language model for that is just smart stewardship of your time. Or, when you need to polish up some clunky copy for the weekly newsletter.
Nobody wants to read clunky copy.
Right, so letting the tool clean up the grammar makes total sense. Nobody is demanding that you wrestle with the almighty over the precise phrasing of a parking lot announcement.
No.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Those are the easy boundaries, though.
Yeah.
But the insights from the data we're looking at today, they point to a much quieter phenomenon.
Yeah, the creep.
The creep, exactly, because there's no predetermined boundary in most churches. The usage just inevitably creeps. It's this silent migration.
It's so subtle.
It is. First, it's just the newsletter. Then, a few weeks later, it's a routine staff email. And then a month later, you are staring at that blank page for Sunday, and you think, I'll just ask the tool for a sermon outline, just to get the juices flowing.
Just to get started, just an outline.
Right, just an outline. And finally, before you even realize a boundary has been crossed, you're asking it to draft that incredibly hard pastoral email to a grieving family.
Because you just didn't have the emotional energy to write it yourself.
Exactly.
And, that is where the danger really spikes. Imagine reading an AI-generated email to a grieving family that says something completely tone-deaf.
Oh, man. Like what?
I hope this season of loss provides a unique opportunity for your family's personal growth.
Oh, wow. Ouch.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
It is, because it sounds professional on a superficial level, right? Like corporate HR speak. But it is entirely devoid of the actual shepherd's heart. It just completely lacks that deep, localized empathy that a pastor brings to their specific congregation.
I want to talk about how that creep actually functions mechanically, Because we hear this old cliche of the frog in boiling water all the time.
Right, the classic metaphor.
Yeah, we throw that analogy around, but let's actually apply it to what is happening here. It's not just about the heat of the water. It's really about the gradual loss of sensitivity. Like, you don't sit down at your desk on a Thursday and just declare, I'm going to let an algorithm preach for me this week.
No one does that.
No. It happens one deadline at a time. The temperature rises one moment of fatigue at a time.
Yeah.
The heat is that blurring line between administrative output and pastoral care.
It gets so blurry.
So the question is, at what point does the relief of avoiding the blank page actually cause you to skip the essential wrestling with God that makes a sermon authentic in the first place?
Well, the friction of the blank page, it's vital.
Yeah.
That wrestling isn't just some romanticized, antiquated idea of ministry, you know? It is the actual forge where your pastoral voice is shaped. And when you bypass that friction, the data strongly suggests that congregations intuitively sense the loss.
Really? They can tell.
They can. They might not notice on week one. I mean, the person sitting in the third row, they probably won't have the technical vocabulary to say, hey, pastor, the syntax of your second point sounded like a predictive language model.
Yeah, they're not going to say that.
No, but after the third generic sermon in a row, or, after a couple of newsletters that read like they were written by nobody in particular.
They start to feel it.
Yes, they start to sense a shift. Your unique voice, that distinct cadence they trust, it starts sounding incredibly flat.
Frictionless.
Exactly, it becomes frictionless.
Okay, I want to stop right there for a second because I'm genuinely struggling with a piece of this.
Okay, what is it?
I understand that we're tired. I totally get why we might ask the tool to generate a draft.
Yeah.
But why do we just accept what the AI spits out without double-checking it?
Yeah.
Like, if we know it might produce something hollow or tone-deaf or even incorrect, why don't we edit it more heavily? Is there something happening in our brains when we use these tools?
That is the core of the issue right there. And to answer it, we have to look at some really fascinating research out of the Wharton School.
Okay, I love this stuff. What did they find?
So a team of researchers led by Stephen Shaw and Gideon Nave, they ran this comprehensive experiment on human reasoning and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
They had participants work through complex logical puzzles. One group worked entirely on their own, just relying on their own cognitive abilities.
It's on pen and paper, basically.
Exactly. Another group was given access to an AI tool to assist them. But the researchers introduced this brilliant twist.
Oh, I like twists. What did they do?
They secretly programmed the AI to occasionally give incredibly confident but entirely wrong answers.
Oh, wow. So they were actively testing to see if people would blindly trust a machine just because it sounded authoritative?
Yes, exactly that. And the results were just staggering. When the AI provided the correct answer, the human participants naturally performed better.
Sure, that makes sense.
But when the AI provided the confidently wrong answer, the human participants went along with the error 80% of the time.
Wait, 80%?
80%.
They were looking at a logic puzzle, they were given a wrong answer by a machine, and 4 out of 5 people just accepted it as truth.
Right, and it gets even deeper than just accepting the error.
How so?
The research shows that the individuals using the AI actually rated their own personal confidence in those wrong answers higher than the people who were doing the hard work on their own.
That is wild. They were more confident in the wrong answer.
Because the machine told them so. Shaw and Nave, they coined a brilliant term for this phenomenon. They call it cognitive surrender.
Cognitive surrender, wow.
Yeah, it's the precise psychological moment when a human being simply stops evaluating the information in front of them, conserves their mental energy, and just adopts the machine's output as their own thought process.
So we basically mistake the machine's fluency for our own mastery.
Exactly.
Man, cognitive surrender. That is a terrifying phrase for anyone who communicates for a living. Let's pull this out of a Wharton laboratory and put it directly into a church office.
Let's do it.
What does cognitive surrender actually look like for a pastor? Because it's not a logic puzzle on a screen, right?
Yeah.
It is the theological diet of a congregation.
Right, it's spiritual nourishment.
So what happens the first time a pastor experiences cognitive surrender on a Thursday afternoon, and the AI-generated content carries a subtle theological error?
Yeah.
Like not a blatant heresy that jumps off the page, but something just a little bit off-center. A slight misinterpretation of a Greek text, or maybe a cultural assumption baked into the algorithm that nobody catches before it hits the congregation on Sunday morning.
Which happens a lot.
Right, because the Wharton research tells us the AI is going to sound incredibly confident when it hands you that error.
It will sound like a world-class scholar. And the implications of that are just massive. The research shows that pastors are already feeling the weight of this internally, too.
Are they?
Yeah, if we look at recent Barna data, 49% of church leaders report that they're already worried about losing authenticity in their preaching because of AI.
Wait, nearly half. Half of all leaders are actively worried that they are losing their own voice.
Yes. Because the deepest fear isn't just the accidental theological error, right?
Right.
The deeper existential fear is looking back at a year of your sermons or a year of your pastoral letters and realizing you don't quite recognize the mime that produced them.
Oh, that's heavy.
It is the fear of putting your name on a body of work that no longer feels entirely yours. Like, sure, you saved time, but you surrendered the deep, localized connection with your people.
Which honestly brings us to the massive structural problem underneath all of this. We've been focusing pretty heavily on the internal psychological risk of cognitive surrender, but let's zoom out. Let's look at the institutional reality of the modern church.
Okay.
Because we are witnessing a massive structural gap in how churches are handling this technology.
Let's define that for everyone, because the gap between the adoption of the tool and the governance of the tool, that is where the real danger lies.
Exactly. So think about that treadmill of ministry output we talked about at the beginning of the episode.
The burning treadmill.
Right. You have this burning treadmill of relentless demands. Here at Church Ready, we have found that church leader AI adoption is running well past 90%.
90%.
Past 90%. Almost everyone in ministry is using it in some capacity, whether they admit it publicly or not. Yet, the substantial majority of churches, and in fact the data reveals that only 5% have policies, have absolutely no written standard for AI use at all.
Wow. 91% adoption against 5% governance.
Yeah. I mean, that is not just a gap. That is an institutional blind spot.
A huge one.
But we have to ask why that gap exists, right? Why do only 5% of churches have policies?
What do you think is causing it? It usually comes down to paralysis. Elder boards and oversight committees, they often just lack the technical vocabulary to draft a policy, so they put it off.
They're intimidated by it.
Very much so. And meanwhile, pastors are hesitant to bring it up to their boards because they fear the board might overreact and just ban the tools entirely.
Right, which would take away the one thing that's finally giving them some administrative relief.
Exactly. So everyone just stays quiet and the usage continues in the dark.
That makes so much sense. Furthermore, the Barna data shows that a third of congregants actively want guidance from their pastor on how to think about AI.
They want to know.
They really do. They are hungry for a theological framework for this technology.
Yeah.
But only 12% of pastors currently feel equipped to actually teach on it from the pulpit.
You know, that 12% metric is incredibly revealing.
Why do you say that?
Because pastors feel unequipped because they assume they need to be like Silicon Valley tech experts to preach about AI.
They think they need a computer science degree.
Right. They think they need to understand the underlying architecture of a neural network. But the congregation isn't asking for a computer science lecture.
No, not at all.
They are asking for pastoral guidance on what it means to be human in an increasingly automated world.
And this brings us right back to the treadmill of ministry was already burning. You were already overworked.
Mm-hmm.
The accelerant is the completely unregulated adoption of these tools just pouring onto that workload.
Mm-hmm.
And the bridge is this dangerous span we are currently crossing between rapid adoption and zero governance. We are basically crossing a bridge made of kindling.
We really are.
And I want to frame this carefully for you listening right now. We are naming this honestly as an opportunity for intentionality, not as a verdict on pastors who are already using these tools in good faith.
Right. No shame here.
None. You needed relief, and you found it. But this gap is what is accelerating the risk to your own pastoral voice. We at Church Ready are explicitly naming this framework because the church has to see the structural vulnerability clearly in order to actually fix it.
Yes.
The church's mission doesn't change because of AI, but the infrastructure that sustains that mission may need to.
Yeah.
If you have never considered how AI disruptions will impact your congregation and church budget, the Church AI Readiness Assessment is the right next step. It only takes 10 minutes. There's a link in the show notes.
Taking that step is just so crucial because relying on personal discipline alone is simply no longer enough to close this massive gap.
No, it's really not.
We have to move away from just hoping our leaders have good boundaries and move toward visionary stewardship.
Well, let me challenge that transition for just a moment, though.
Okay, push back.
Because I know a lot of leaders who are highly, highly disciplined. Like, they have incredible personal boundaries with technology. They use AI as a sparring partner, not a ghostwriter. So why isn't that personal discipline enough if the leader's heart is actually in the right place?
It's a fair question. Personal discipline is a vital starting point. Carey Nieuwhof talks about this extensively in his upcoming book, AI and the Future Church.
Oh, Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it's great. And he emphasizes the immense importance of the individual pastor's discipline. His advice is incredibly solid. Write the first draft yourself.
Okay, so you start it.
Right. Let the AI refine your words, but never let it replace your thinking. You have to keep doing the hard work before you ever open the prompt box. The discipline of the first draft is what protects the pastor from cognitive surrender.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Carrie's advice for the individual sitting in the chair today.
Right.
But here's where I have to push back on the idea that personal discipline solves the institutional problem.
Okay, let's hear it.
That discipline is great for you, the current lead pastor. But what happens when you leave? Personal conviction doesn't survive a staff change. It doesn't survive a transition when a new youth pastor comes in from a completely different church culture where, they used AI to write every single devotional.
That's a really good point.
And it certainly doesn't survive a well-meaning, exhausted volunteer who never had that deep philosophical conversation about cognitive surrender in the first place.
No, they just want to get the flyer done.
Exactly.
And that is the exact vulnerability. Individual discipline is necessary for character, absolutely, but it is not institutional infrastructure.
No, it's not.
The real risk, and this is the reason that 5% policy metric is so incredibly dangerous, is that almost no church has ever decided in writing where the line actually is. Like, where does help write end and wrote it for me begin? If your church relies entirely on your personal habits, your church is unprotected the moment you hand over the keys.
If it is not written down, it simply does not exist. A personal boundary is not a church policy.
Exactly. And this is where leaders often freeze up.
Yeah, they do.
They think creating a policy means they need like a massive 6-week teaching series on the theology of technology before they can draft a single rule.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is. But you don't need to be an expert to take a low-pressure first step. You can use tools like the Church AI Policy Generator from us at Church Ready to just get a working first draft.
Something to start with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You generate the document, you bring it to your elder board, and you simply have a discussion. What AI is allowed to touch.
You have to make the decision in the light so that your staff and volunteers know what to do in the dark.
Oh, I love that. That is the essence of visionary stewardship. You decide as an organization that AI can handle routine administration.
Sure.
It can organize historical research. It can clean up the grammar in the weekly newsletter. But you also decide clearly and in writing what it never touches.
Like what?
It never touches the pastoral judgment in a counseling follow-up email. It never touches the core messaging and theological application of the pulpit. When you write those boundaries down, you aren't restricting your staff. You are building an immune system for your church's culture. You're giving them permission to use the tool safely.
So what does this all mean for you as a leader listening today? It really requires adopting that posture of visionary stewardship. A pastor who personally writes every single first draft is practicing a beautiful and necessary discipline. But if you want to actually protect your church, that discipline has to outlast your personal habits.
It has to.
It has to outlast your tenure. Deciding right now, in writing, what AI is for and what it never touches is the exact work that builds the readiness your church will desperately need as AI continues reshaping everything. From the church budget to the deep trust your people place in the voice coming from the pulpit.
It really is about securing the structural integrity of the church for the next decade, rather than just figuring out a way to survive this coming Sunday.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to really mull over.
Okay.
Think about the person sitting in the third row of your sanctuary this coming Sunday.
Right.
That person, they might not know what an AI prompt is. They might not have the faintest idea how a large language model calculates the probability of the next word.
Right. They don't care about the tech.
They don't. But they intimately know the sound of a shepherd who has spent time with God on their behalf. They know the cadence, the pauses, and the localized empathy of a leader who has wrestled with the text specifically for them.
Yes.
If cognitive surrender quietly takes over the church office, what is the subtle, silent cost of that congregant slowly losing the unique voice they came to trust?
Wow.
At Church Ready, we help churches solve today's ministry challenges to secure tomorrow's readiness for what AI is changing. Until next time, lead well, steward wisely, and trust deeply.
The church's mission doesn't change because of AI, but the infrastructure that sustains that mission has to. If you have never considered how AI disruptions will impact your congregation and church budget, the Church Readiness Assessment is the right next step. It only takes 10 minutes. There is a link in the show notes.